Hi, you are listening to She's Unstoppable, where we are having a series of conversations about how to transform your mind, body, and spirit to succeed so you can create more money and more impact in your soul-fueled business, whether you're just starting out or growing to the next level. I'm Wendy Collier, former corporate hostage, now multiple six-figure business owner. I am extremely passionate about helping you know exactly what you are meant to do and how to make money doing it. Ready? Welcome to today's episode of She's Unstoppable. Welcome back, everyone, to She's Unstoppable. We're really happy to be with you again, and you're going to love our topic. Our topic today is breaking the fear barrier, and we are with Summer McStravick to talk about this. Summer is the creator of Flowdreaming, a technique that empowers you to define and program your future by working with the living energies of our universe. Today, her online flagship program, Me School, attracts students worldwide and forms a vibrant community of conscious creators the world over. You can find hundreds of recorded, downloadable Flowdreams, meditations, classes, her books, a blog, her podcast, and much more at her website. Her latest adventure is her live broadcast and podcast network, Inflow Radio, which broadcasts personal growth programs 24/7. In addition to Flowdreaming, Me School, and Inflow Radio, Summer is most well known for having created and pioneered HayHouseRadio.com, where she was the director of new media at Hay House Publishing. This was founded by Louise Hay. Many of you probably know of that. And there, she co-hosted and developed podcasts, CDs, webinars, and radio programs for Dr. Wayne Dyer, Doreen Virtue, Greg Braden, Jerry and Esther Hicks of Abraham Hicks, as well as many other luminaries in the fields of self-help and spirituality. And for this reason, I am so excited to bring her on. Welcome, Summer.
Hey, Wendy. Happy to be here with you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just finished 2 Flowdreams of yours right before this recording. And so your voice has been in my ear most of the morning. So thank you.
I'm in your head, literally.
It's all good.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. So, we would love to hear just quickly before we dive into our juicy conversation about breaking the fear barrier. Mm-hmm. How did you come into this beautiful business you have? What was your road there?
Well, I have to condense it like mightily for you. It's been a long road, long path. So I pretty much was born into a family of publishers and spiritualists, mediums. That was my life, grew up in it, tried desperately to get away from it all in college, which most people think is pretty funny because they're all trying to get in. And I was like, no, I just want a normal life and normal parents and nobody does psychic things in my house. But of course we all did. So fast forward, life wouldn't let me get away. So I got into Hay House through a very wild and crazy story we don't really have time for, but let's just say it was meant to be. And that's where I spent the next 10 years in publishing and art direction, product development, eventually audio production and creating Hay House Radio. Had a show with Wayne Dyer there, co-hosting with him for 5 years, working with Louise and Reed, and just kind of growing a big chunk of that company. So it was amazing. I look at it like the universe giving me a second form of college, probably the college I should have gone to, in my training there. Then it was while I was there that I started sharing a technique that I did on my own, that my family kind of, evolved with me. And it was called Flowdreaming. And eventually I sat down and sort of pitched the idea to Reed, and to my total astonishment, he said, yeah, go ahead, write a book, we'll publish it, which they don't normally do with their employees. So I did, and it took off, and it sold a lot, and people were fascinated, and they were listening to my podcast, and they said, give us more. And in 2009, I started Flowdreaming as a company full-time and just began to build it and start to create the audio versions of what I call Flowdreams. Wrote more, of course, blogged, and just really started to get it out there in the world. And I've been doing it ever since. And so now I teach people and I bring them into my program, my Me School. They learn how to go through the process, what it's like to flow, and really live this philosophy. And latest adventure, of course, is Inflow Radio, like you mentioned, where I'm kind of getting back to some of my podcasting and broadcasting roots. So that's what brings me here. Built a big chunk of a company for a company, and then I did it all over again and built one just for myself, which was pretty affirming because I realized I didn't need to have a, multi-million-dollar star-studded structure behind me. You can do it if it's inside of you. It doesn't matter where you're placed. You can still do it.
Yeah.
So did I talk fast enough? Did I broom, 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 broom?
Wow, that was
slow me down if you need to.
No, it's just interesting to hear the journey. And it sounds like you've always been an entrepreneur, basically. I mean, well, you were an employee for did you consider yourself an employee for Hay House? But clearly you had an entrepreneurial spirit while working there because you came up with this idea and you wrote a book and, you had the seeds there.
If it's in you, it never goes away. I mean, a little funny piece is, I remember when my boss there first, proposed the job to me. At the time, I was kind of freelancing for them. And I said, no, you know what? I just don't think I'd be a very good employee. Maybe we could try it for 2 weeks. And if I don't like it, can I walk away and just still be a freelancer for you? I can't believe I had the balls to say that, but I did. And I'm sure she was really shocked too.
No one's ever said that to them, probably.
Yeah, I was so reluctant to convert my life from the freedom I had into, working for a company. But of course I ended up staying and, we all know what happened from there.
Right. You probably felt that though. You felt it inside of yourself that you're more of an independent, creative entrepreneur. So
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got a lot of people on, different parts of this journey. So it's interesting to hear, kind of how you did that. And it's a perfect sort of setup for our conversation around breaking the fear barrier, because I'm sure every step of the way and every transition between things has produced some fear, right?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, the gaps between things are the worst. They're the worst for everybody. And I always look at it like there's this one kind of picture that forms in my mind whenever I think about it. Imagine you're this little fish on a reef and there's like lots going on and it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. It's like Finding Nemo everywhere. And then one day the reef starts to get kind of old and yucky and the coral starts to go and you're like, it's time to go out into the open ocean. So you find yourself swimming between reefs. And it feels lonely and it feels dark and it feels cold. And you wonder if you're ever going to find another reef. Is this the end of everything? And you're about to give up. And then lo and behold, another reef happens. But that's the transition period. And it's always that way. Almost always that way. This sense of loss and not belonging and loss of confidence in yourself, loss of direction, all of it. So that's how most of us encounter these transitions. And, it's like breaking off points. It's how you create the gap between experiences and you can't avoid it. So the only thing you can do is figure out how to move through it with grace and beauty and just embrace it instead of fighting your way through.
Yeah.
It's just easier said than done.
Totally. Right. Because there's so much fear that comes up. And then the question is, and really the outcome or where you end up is a result of what you do in the gap. Are you not flailing, drowning in the water? Are you grabbing the closest, thing that you see after that, you abandon the reef? And I love that visual. Like, are you then just grabbing the driftwood, the next piece of driftwood you see, right? Rather than waiting for like the lush, plentiful reef.
Let's put it this way. If you do grab that driftwood, you're going to hold on to it for a little bit and it's going to float right out of your hands again.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, and this is, so just kind of going into the conversation of what makes you unstoppable. Yes. So the fear that's involved and the way for me out, the way out of the fear of doing the next thing is, you and I have had this conversation before about when you're up in your head and you fail to kind of get down into your heart and into your action. A lot of us freeze up when we're in the transition zone. And sometimes the transition is actually you're growing something, like you're trying to build a business. That's transitionary. The business isn't built yet. This is a risk. This might be the next thing that carries you for the next 5 or 10 years, or it might not. So it doesn't mean you have nothing on your plate. It's just that what's on your plate hasn't bloomed yet. It hasn't blossomed yet. You're not there. You're not in a state of contentment and joy and safety. I think that's what it is, safety around it yet, because that's ultimately what most of us are going for. We want to build some form of safety in our lives through a great relationship or our work or whatever it may be. So the way that I look at this is your mind here is what often stops people. They say, wait for more knowledge, wait for you to know this is right. Maybe this isn't right. I don't know. I know what I should do, but I'm not doing it. Or I did it and then somebody slapped my hand and I got burned and I'm not going to do that. Right. So this dynamic tornado of stuff starts swirling in your head and locks you in place. Now you're the little fish who's just hanging out in the water, not going anywhere. Right? You're trusting the current to some degree. The current's still carrying you. By the way, I call that my flow, but you're really not doing anything with it. You're not making those next moves. So I get down into my body at that point. I get into action. I have a little name for it. I call it action. And it always reminds me, if I'm not getting what I'm looking for, if I'm not getting those things I need, I am probably not also providing my life and my future with enough new materials to work with. Mm-hmm. So either I've stalled out and I'm not giving anything to my life, or what I'm giving is very minuscule and repetitive and the same stuff I've been giving up before. So in my philosophy, life will give you all kinds of beautiful and wonderful new things, but you've got to give it some new stuff for it to work with. Otherwise, it's going to reflect back at you the same stuff over and over. So if your life is a mirror and it's reflecting you and you're giving it the same stuff or not giving it anything at all because you're stuck, you're frozen, you're not trusting, and you're in fear, life has its hands tied. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. So my number one objective is take some actions, try some things, do some stuff, do stuff.
Yeah.
And then my brain says, well, how do you know it's the right stuff? And I say, I don't. I have no idea. This could be a giant flop. This could be a waste of time. I could lose money. I could lose all kinds of stuff on this. But I have to do it because I need a response from the universe. I need a response that tells me either, yes, this is a green light, do more of it, or no, choose something else. Mm-hmm. Now, I start building those little actions up, those little choices up, even a big direction. I'll pick a direction. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do this now. And that's why I've built so many different things over my life, because I'm going to do this now. Let's see what happens. Let's see how life responds to it. Is it going to open it up for me? Give me more green lights? Give me more good stuff? Or is it going to shut it down and say, not that one? Mm-hmm. Not that one. But you have to get beyond the fear inside yourself of making a wrong choice, of losing something, of being desperate. This is it. This is the last I'll ever. That's not true.
Right.
All of those are just lack thoughts. You will always find your next reef.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's almost worth grabbing the driftwood if you need to get to the next.
Oh yeah.
Spot. You need to stop. That's basically what you're saying is do something, because there's a process of elimination that's really important when we're looking for clarity and focus. I always say, I'm not the only one who said it. Other people have, but action creates the clarity. Action creates the clarity. Non-action creates nothing. Confusion.
That's just like you're dead in the water. A little dead fishy in the water.
You're actually more confused when you're not taking action because you're staying in your head and it's overwhelming. But this is one of the reasons I love your work, is that you talk so much about this. You talk so much about essentially playing with life, like considering life is a playground and you've got all these choices and it's like a buffet. And until you start tasting and trying and testing, you're not going to know what direction to go. And I always look at that as you are able to eliminate things that you don't want to do. Yeah. Especially to get you. Does that make sense?
Don't like mussels and hot sauce and tortillas. Stay away from those at the buffet.
Yeah. But you're not going to know until you eat it. And then there's these combinations of things. Well, if I eat guac with I don't know, an apple pie, that's not very good. Maybe you didn't know that until you did it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So this is the action.
That this just makes me think of something else, which is, sometimes I'll talk with people and they've left something and they're looking back and they're looking at another point in their life when they were successful, when they had a good job, or when they were happily married before all the stuff happened, or right. There's this backward, I call it backward looking girl. Like I have all these little catchphrases for things, right? So backward looking girl. She's a good podcast, by the way. Go that's one of my titles of one of my past shows. But backward looking girl is always looking behind her for the things that were great. And when she's looking ahead of her, her assumption is nothing will be as good as that. I don't know, and I talk to these students and clients, and they're saying, well, I lost my job, or I can't seem to make this work, or I don't think I'll ever have another relationship, or my health will never come back again. And I look at them and I say, really, you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 more years here. And this seems to be something that has a later onset for most of us. It's usually 40s, 50s where we start to get these feelings. If you look back in your own heart, you probably didn't feel this as much in your 20s and 30s. You had a little more resilience and you weren't looking back as much. 40s, 50s is where we start to get into this weird self-talk. I'm like, so what are you going to do for the next 20, 30 years? Really? Do you really believe you will not have good work again? Do you really believe you won't have a companion? You've got a long way here. Do you really believe that? And the answer is no. And I said, then why are we in this state of mind? Because you're in the deep blue ocean right now. You're in the gap. That's all. This is an illusion, and it's temporary. Yeah. You're just going to find your way. So hold tight to that. Let that be the lead line that brings you out. You're going to have another career. You're going to have another relationship. You're going to open up into something beautiful. You're going to have a whole other huge chunk. We just don't know what it is yet. So relax, get into some action, get into some fearlessness, and do stuff. Do a lot of stuff and do different stuff. Do things that you haven't done in a million years. Go take up sewing again and ukulele. Do whatever it may be. And let's see where it leads you.
So how do you define fearless action? Because fear, I talk about fear being a companion in life. Like it's just with us. And if it's in the driver's seat, we need to put it in the back seat, or maybe it needs to go in the trunk, or possibly be hooked up to the outside of the car somewhere. But it's kind of like always around us. Yeah. What is your point of view on that? I look at managing it and overcoming it.
Well, okay. So let's differentiate. There's good fear and there's bad fear. The bad fear is the one that says, don't run across the freeway. It's kind of a bad idea. And those fears are really rational and intelligent, and we should pay attention to those. We know what that fear is like. It's a stop. It's a hard stop. This doesn't feel right. That's a different kind of fear. The other kind of fear is a good fear. And this fear usually has two forms. It either says, stop, you've done that before and failed. Why would you even consider something like this again? And the other fear is, this is something bigger than you've ever done before. Why would you even consider doing something that you don't know the outcome of? So most of us are being, ricocheting between these two forms of fear. Don't do it. You've already done it. Didn't work. And don't do it. You don't know where it's going to go. You have no guaranteed outcome. So I differentiate between those two fears. And when I feel those two fears, they always end up telling me the same thing, which is, okay, are you going to be boxed in by that or not? And that's the choice you make in your head. You either say, yes, I allow you to box me in and stop me right here, or no, I see you. You're pointing out landscapes that I still have to conquer. Because that's what they're doing. They're showing you things you haven't yet conquered, you haven't yet leveled up into, gone big into, whatever words you want to use. They're always showing you your horizon. So they're opportunities. I mean, that's what both of these kinds of fear are. Either go ahead, do it again, go ahead, do it differently, or go ahead and do this thing you haven't done and see what will happen. See, your head is always trying to tell you, if you don't know the outcome, don't do it. Because your head wants to protect you, it wants to keep you safe. And when you're going big, when you're reaching, when you're stretching, when you're saying, I'm going to show up as a leader, or I'm going to branch off on my own, I'm going to become a consultant, I'm going to, put the family finances at risk because I have this dream thing that I'm trying to build. Your head says, you're crazy. You have no basis for this. We don't know what will happen. And I want to keep you safe. So I refer to this as the king, and the heart is the queen. King says, my job is to keep you safe and not let you do things that might hurt you or harm you. And if I don't know what the outcome is, I can't keep you safe because it's not a guarantee. Your heart says, hey, if you keep me stuffed up in my little box all the time, I can never grow. I can't flourish. The kingdom will die. You can't keep me behind closed walls. You have to trust me. We don't know what will happen. And I know that, but we're going to do it anyway. So these two rule the kingdom together. One isn't superior to the other. They rule together. They rule in balance with each other. So when I feel these fears, I recognize either there's something I still want that didn't work out before. And instead of saying, ouch, never touch it again, if I have a desire for it, like my desire is still leading the way, even though it didn't work out before, I'm still feeling a need and a desire to do it. It tells me it's still in me. It's still a horizon. It needs to be resolved. And my long game here in life is resolve as many of these things that I'm being propelled to do or called to do. Because the fewer of them that I resolve before I die, well, St. Peter's in heaven. He's going to check the list, not of was Summer a good girl. It's more like, did she resolve those things that she came to resolve? Did she go past those fears? Did she create and make? What did she discover in herself? How much did she grow and what did she see? How much fear did she get through? Like that's more where I go in my life.
I love that. Yeah. How much fear did you get through?
Yeah. And I'm joking about St. Peter, but
right. Yeah, of course.
You get the idea.
So that's the best way to break the barrier also, because if you practice the art of we're going to do it anyway, even though we don't know the outcome, then you build that muscle, right? You build the courage muscle. I find it gets easier and easier every time I do that.
Yes.
Right.
You take a series of brave actions, essentially. And it strengthens you and it makes you much more resilient. And that's, just to circle backwards to backwards looking girl. That's how you pull yourself out of that state, right? You start building new things. You start looking again into the future and recognizing there are and the more fear you have, flip that in your head. The more fear you have, the more new ground it means you're being asked to cover. And that new ground doesn't go away. It stays there. It lingers. It surrounds you. It hounds you until you take action into it. And if you do slip back and say, no, I'm just going to get complacent and this is just the rest of my life and nothing's ever going to change. Basically what you're saying then is, I'm done growing. I'm done growing this life. We're just going to sit here for a while. I'm going to sit out the rest of this game.
That's atrophy right there and slow
death. And we've all felt it. We've all taken time on the bench. I mean, we've all done this. I've certainly done this. I've taken time on the bench. I said, I'm beat down. I can't.
Totally.
And it's frustrating if you are sitting on the bench right now, you're like, when am I going to get off the bench? Yeah. It can take a couple of years, depending on how big the prior disappointment was.
Oh, wow.
And you're trying to rush it and force it, and it's just not working. It will happen. It just has to, how do I say it? Purge through you. But
so how do you know when you're lingering too long on the bench?
When you're lingering, so when you're lingering on the bench, what you're feeling is I'm recovering, I'm recuperating, I'm in despair, I'm down, I don't know my worth, I don't know where I'm going. I don't trust myself to make any choices and take any action, right? And you realize that your trust is at an all-time low. Something happened that broke it. Somebody disappointed you. Your work disappointed you. Your partner disappointed you. And you're going to take some time to kind of be in that state. Let your heart kind of push it through, work through it, chew on it. Eventually, you're getting restless in that state. And you're waiting for that moment of restlessness when you wake up and you're like, gotta be more than this, gotta be more than this. Yeah. And most of us stay in that state for a long time too. And it's like we recognize our restlessness, but we're still reluctant to do anything about it. And some of us will stay there for months or even years.
Right.
Eventually you reach that state where you're like, I can't handle this anymore. Something's got to give.
Right.
Something's got to give. And that's when you're like, sure, I'll teach that Zumba class down the street. Why not? I've got nothing better that I can figure out to do with my life. And it seems like a silly action, but you want to do Zumba, so you do it. And now the ball is rolling again.
Right. You just got to get that momentum started.
Yeah. And you have to recognize when you're in the state and know that the state will pass. And when you feel that little twinge that says, go there, you're going to listen to it and listen to it and listen to it. You still might not take action on it for a while. When I talk to a lot of people, I always say to them, you've been like, you're overripe. You've been ready for this for like months, if not years. Like, what have you been doing? You were ready for this 6 months ago. Do you agree? And they'll say, yeah,
Right.
I do. Like, well, why didn't you do it 6 months ago? I don't know. Inertia. Like, well, I'm here to scream at you to get out of it. It's your time. Welcome. And you're finally going to hear what the universe has been trying to tell you, because you're going to get a series of messages over and over and over again. Right? Life is going to start saying it to you and you're going to reject it. It's going to say it to you. You're going to reject it. It's going to say it to you. You're going to reject it. And depending on how stubborn you are, you'll probably spend more time in this rejection phase. If you're less stubborn, you actually will move quicker than those stubborn types.
Well, and that's the key to being unstoppable. And one of the objectives of this event is to help women to get out of that place faster.
Yeah.
Because it's like you said, I mean, you can look back and say, wow, I really was ready to get out of this place 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. What have I been doing?
Yeah.
And we want to help them facilitate that process or speed it up.
Yeah. So, just like a little exercise that anybody listening right now could do. You know how we talked about those 2 forms of good fear?
Yes.
If you write down 3 of your fears right now about anything in your life, you then ask yourself, is this a fear of the unknown, what I haven't conquered yet? Or is this a fear of something that worked out poorly for me in the past? Which one? And which of these do I want to take on? Because until I take this on and resolve it, life isn't going to give me any new set of growth. It's not like you can go around these, and bypass them. The only way out is through. It's one of my favorite sayings. The only way out is through. So pick one and move through it. All the new horizons, all the reefs are on the other side. And you can stare at it all day long for as many years as you want. But until you choose it and move through it, you're not going to get to the new set of good stuff. Yeah. And a lot of us just think I can just chill out and wait and it'll go away. And we've tried that and it doesn't
happen.
No, it disappears in a new form, that's it. It just keeps waiting for you to take it on.
Totally. And that's why I like your example of the Zumba class, because as random as that sounds and like small as it sounds, that gets you moving in a direction of some kind.
Exactly.
And getting that momentum started. So this is about baby steps as well, right?
Yeah, you don't have to take big leaps, especially when you're trying to build yourself past fear. Don't take a big leap. It's not like, well, I'm just going to move to Kansas. It's like, that's kind of that's fear inducing. And you think you're going to clear it all at once by doing that? No, why don't you just instead start, take some night school classes or, do something a bit smaller and build up your resilience, build up your optimism, build up the options now that flow can give you. Add more new things in, so that you get more new information and new doors come with those new things. Build small.
There's such a big fear of loss, right? So the idea of adding more in is much more comforting, I think, to most. It's like, I don't have to leap or drop or or move or at this moment in time. I can just add more in and see where that takes me.
Yes, exactly. I hadn't quite thought of it that way, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. Like this week, I'm starting a Tai Chi class on Friday. I don't know why. I just always see those people in the park and they seem so fascinating. I don't know what will happen. So I'm going to go start a Tai Chi class and we'll see. I have no idea where it'll lead. Right. But I know that I need some new things in my health and my, my fitness. So why not? Let's discover.
Yeah, I think this is one of your biggest messages, if not the message that you send to the world on a regular basis is, it's just about getting out there and trying and playing and experimenting and really considering life more a play, more playful.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's so much as an illusion. And if we can just start to embrace and step outside our comfort zone and just start trying things, we're going to learn so much more and discover so much more. And we will break through fear much faster.
Yeah. It boils down to this. You get to decide how you want to be inside any experience, right? That's it. No, the world doesn't decide for you how you get to be or feel. Other people don't get to decide that. They don't have the power to decide that. You have all the power to decide that. So even in a terrible experience, you get to decide who you want to be in it. And I didn't mention this, but I went through breast cancer a couple of years ago. at 43, which was absurdly young. I had a temper tantrum at God about it. I'm like, what are you doing? I've been such a good person my whole life. And eventually I moved through the experience with this understanding. I get to choose how I want to be here. I can either be angry and upset and afraid the whole time, which means a couple years of feeling like that.
Right.
Or I can instead say, what does this mean to me? What's the gift in this for me? How can I look at this in a different way that moves me beyond fears in my life and maybe ends up moving other people beyond fears in their life? Why has this been gifted to me, and who do I want to be in it? How do I want to feel all the way through? And, it's just as simple sometimes as making a choice. Now, of course, if you have depression, if you have some chemical stuff going on, that's a separate thing that you need to work with and, work with your own emotional self around. But fundamentally, everything you experience in life, you are in charge of how you want to respond to it. Nobody makes you respond with any particular set of emotions. It's all up to you. So even in a terrible situation, you're losing money, your friends are all mad at you, you can decide, how do I want to feel in this? And it doesn't mean you're a sociopath because you're only going to decide to feel happy, right? But it means that you can say, oh, I'm going to feel responsibility, or I'm going to feel like I want to clean this up. I'm going to feel worthiness. I'm going to feel accountability. I'm going to feel trust around this. I'm going to feel, right? You choose it. Yeah. And for me, that again leads into getting beyond fear. You don't have to feel the fear once it shows up for you. It's just a signpost. It's just telling you something. It does not need to be an ongoing state of being. Once you get it, you go, oh, I understand. I don't need to keep feeling this. The only reason you'll keep feeling it is if you didn't hear it the first time and you're not making a response to it. Then you'll keep feeling it because it's like the alarm bells. It's like there's a siren going off. She's not paying attention. Well, keep ringing the damn siren.
I think this is so, so, so important for people to really, really grasp, which is the concept that you can literally choose your feelings. Yeah. And that's what flow dreaming is all about as well. It's like literally generating the feelings. I've used flow dreaming to take myself from being in really down. Yeah. And in a matter of minutes, I feel happy. And that's the choice. And it's very much like turning the TV channel, I don't watch TV, but like, it's a similar idea of you're on a channel, it's depressing you, turn the channel. It's the same idea with your thoughts and feelings. Like you can turn the channel, you have that choice.
Exactly. That's funny because I'm not a fan of horror movies and and murders and things. A lot of people love that. They love that super tense high drama. And I'm like, I don't like those feelings. Why would I want to watch a TV show that makes me feel those feelings? They're not entertaining for me.
There's a movie recently, and I actually am totally blanking on the name of it, but everyone was ranting and raving. You got to see this movie. It just won a major award, like Best Actress or something. And I went, and everyone's saying how great it was. I walked out depressed. I'm like, I paid $15 to be depressed.
Exactly. Yes.
That reaction, but I'm a sensitive person. So there you go. So that was very much a choice to enter into that experience. I didn't realize I'd have that reaction, but
yes,
we can choose to not watch that movie or watch that TV show. We can stop and choose differently.
Exactly. So you take those fears, you recognize how long have they been screaming at me for? Once you ask that question, that's going to be really eye-opening. You're like, damn, my whole life. It's like, wow, that siren's been going. When are you going to stop the siren? And then you think, well, I'm powerless to stop the siren. No, you're not. You just haven't done so yet. Because you felt like you were hostage to it. Like it would never go away. Like it was bigger than you and more in control than you. Exactly. So you look at how long have I had that fear for about this thing and how long do I want to keep it for? And once that decision is made, kind of that new course just sets itself up for you on its own because you're choosing against now staying in that state of fear any longer. And your life and your flow and your future can give you a lot more new stuff because you've rejected, where you've just been.
Right.
So, and that's what I use flow dreaming for. I mean, because again, now we're kind of getting up in our head, we're examining it, but you need to do more than just understanding it. Like, to make this interview last inside you, you have to then do something to bring it in. And that's where I bring in flow. And I say, okay, I've made a decision. I looked at these fears. You're right. I don't want to carry them for 20 more years. And that's where all my new stuff is. That's my new horizon. So what am I going to do about it? Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into myself and I'm going to feel what it's like to not have this fear, to feel something very different about my situation. Instead of feeling like I can't be seen, let's use that one because that's a real popular one. A lot of us are afraid to have the world really see us. And we don't even know why we're so scared. Maybe it's we'll be judged, or we'll be seen as an imposter, or maybe we're afraid to be seen, but then nobody will see us and it'll just reconfirm that we're unpopular and we're, not wanted. There's lots of different roots to it, right?
Yeah.
Or you could just go say, all right, that's a big fear of mine, and it's getting in the way of these things that I need to do. So instead, I'm going to feel seen, and I'm going to drop into flow. I'm going to open my heart. I'm going to bring up this emotional feeling that everybody sees me. I am a shining, guiding light. Everywhere I go, people recognize my brilliance and my talents. It just oozes out of me. It's there for everyone. And all of these opportunities come to me as a result. People spot it. They're incredibly intelligent. People around me are so intelligent. When they spot it, they want it. And they offer me opportunities. I want you to come here and do this and speak here and share here and take this position of responsibility. And I'm seen just as a natural effect of the fact that I'm glowing. And I feel this in me, and I feel it, and I am it. And that's who I am now. Okay, so I didn't tell you we were in flow, but I kind of talked you through this emotional state. If I practice that emotional state inside of me, and I do it every single day, and I do it multiple times a day, even for like a minute or two, it's creating a counterweight against the grinding, constant backseat fear. Like you said, the backseat fear.
Yeah.
It's giving my life a little something different to play off of. And that's what I like to do. I like to build little heaps of the different energy and the different emotion that my life can now start using and working with, instead of just waiting for things to happen to me in my life to give me those feelings, because those may or may not happen.
No,
so that's the practical aspect. That's the do stuff.
You in the driver's seat of your life, literally. And, this is a perfect transition into your free gift, which is your free Flowdreaming kit. Because this is what, most people have heard a lot of this. And the idea is, again, to drop in below the neck. I always say the below the neck and into your body. And that was the shift that I experienced when I first started doing Flowdreaming. Was I felt it at a cellular level. Yeah. And I, at the time, was in one of the deepest, darkest places I had been in. And it was Flowdreaming that pulled me out. So I'm just a huge, huge fan, as you know, Summer, and that's why you're here. And the shift was at a cellular level, because I knew all the things. I had a head. I knew it all, right? I was teaching it.
But you see, that's the king. And the king is saying, you know all this great stuff. You're so smart. You know this stuff. But the king is saying, I can't let you really feel this stuff and make decisions based on this stuff. Right? So you can know it and feel, like I've got half of it. I'm so important and in charge. That's the king again. He can be a little bossy that way. But when it drops down below the neck into your heart, that's where you actually have to trust this stuff. And the king's like, hell no, I'm not going to trust this stuff. We don't know where it's going to take you. And that's where the queen says, let me be your guide for a while. Why not? You've got a whole lifetime here. When are you going to let me be your guide for a while? I've been so patient with you.
Right. Because the head has dominated for so long.
And the problem with the head is often right? The head has often gotten you far, especially if you're a very clever person. You rely on it. Doesn't want to give up an inch. Anyway, yes, I could keep going, but let's talk about my gift to everybody.
I could too, for the next 5 hours straight. The thing is, when we don't trust our heart and allow our heart to lead, at least for a while, we're not able to see the magic that unfolds as a result of that. Yeah. So yes, while the head is right, quote unquote, and has gotten you so far, you don't yet know what it's like to be led by your heart if you haven't fully stepped into that. Yeah. So once you see where that leads you, it's like, oh my gosh, this is 100 times better than where my head led me.
The head types and the controlling types will discover that letting their heart lead is the most difficult thing for them to do. It is where all their fear is based. Yes. They do not trust it at all. And these are always the people who end up burned out,
Yeah.
struggling, over controlling, squeezing really hard, and eventually saying, why isn't it working?
Right.
That's always the end point for those types. I know, because I tend to lean in that direction myself. So I know which I see.
We're not speaking on our high horses here, everybody. We've been there.
Oh my gosh, I know.
This is why we're able to speak into it, because knowing what it's like, right?
Yeah.
In that headspace versus heart and intuition.
Yep. My head's always like, you just listen to me. I'll get you there. We'll get out of this. And eventually I'm like, you've been telling me this for like 2 years now. And the head's like, no, I haven't. Like, yeah, you have. No, I haven't. Like,
oh my gosh, the battle within. So it's worth, I think it's just worth experimenting with a lot of what you presented today, Summer. So if someone, they just like need to take a baby step in a direction or add something into their lives, as opposed to just dropping everything and losing everything, and starting to drop in below the neck and start to let your heart lead more, and just, you can learn how to trust it by taking those steps, and that will help you break the fear barrier.
Yes.
And one of the best tools for this, I've always said, is Flowdream.
Yes. And that's the kit. So you get an audio that teaches you, you get a Flowdream that you start working with. It's just called Positive Flow. It's just to put you in a state of pure alignment. Right. And I think I include a little PDF or a book, basically a little booklet that will teach you this process, this practice, 15 minutes, right? But it will show you how to emotionally recondition yourself, get into your heart, create this little practice that becomes that counterbalance for fear, counterbalance for the head, and kind of let you grow that other trusting part of you. So please get it. It's not just mindfulness. It's definitely not meditation. As you can tell, it's really about learning to feel and then doing the feelings in a state of flow, which we didn't even talk about, but that's okay.
I know, it's a whole nother. We'll do that again another time this time.
Yes.
It's really, the way I describe it is it puts you, like I said, in the driver's seat of being able to create and produce emotions you may not otherwise be feeling.
Yeah.
Really creating the emotional landscape for what you want. And what I've noticed is there's a cumulative effect. So the more you do it, the greater the results. The Flow Dreaming Kit, it's at flowdreaming.com. All one word, flowdreaming.com. And you guys, there's a link below this interview. You can go ahead and click through to get that. That's how I got started with Flow Dreaming. There is this explanation that Summer provides as well.
And that's flow dreaming with an F, like Frank, not slow dreaming. Some people think I'm doing slow dreaming, like slow food movement. Like, no.
That's funny. Flow dreaming.
Slow. I'm like, it can be slow, but it's really flow.
F as in Frank. F as in go with the flow.
This has been a great conversation, Wendy. Thank you for asking me.
You're welcome. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here and offering your wisdom. This was so much fun. And gosh, I have like 10 ideas now for other sessions I want to do with you. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you everyone for listening in. Thank you again, Summer, for being here. And we will see you next time on She's Unstoppable. Bye for now.